that I love so much, good old Miami. And being an entrepreneur, someone who was building a company, when we would go out and talk to people, I find that we all have things that we want to get done here, fixed, so to speak, or contribute to. But we tend to work in silos. And so I decided that I'm going to go the route of urbanism and everything has to do with cities because it affects us in every way as a route. And so we created a summit to bring together all the different practitioners within that space. Think of us as generalists in the sense that we try to bring everyone in to really focus on collaboration. So whether you're an architect, an urban planner, you're in policy, if you do anything in the city that somehow affects the way it moves, we want to definitely have you sort of be plugged in with each other, and then see how we can accelerate the pace of innovation. So at best, my hope is that we can get people to connect and collaborate. So we started that a couple years ago. We do one main event every year. We just wrapped one up in February, and so now we're doing monthly talks and mixtures. So being able to come to venues like this kind of breaks it up a bit. But we do have true full-on happy hours. A few of my friends were completely mistaken. They thought it was a happy hour today, so they showed up to drink and eat, but so they were a little bit disappointed. But nonetheless, that's totally okay. But we will have happy hours. We just did one in Charcoals in the Wynwood Yard, I think a couple weeks back. So if you're on our mailing list, you'll get our updates as well. So thank you for coming out this evening, and I would like to introduce and of course say thank you to Mike for Modern Home for opening up your space. So I want to thank you for that. And I'll start with you because, and I have you introduce yourself. We'll go around and introduce everyone. I'll start with you and then just tell me a little bit more about what you're doing here in the city and how it all plays into urbanism and wellness and mindfulness and all that kind of stuff.
Thank you. So I'm Mike, and this is my loft. It is the clubhouse for Modern Home as well as my home. So what's cool is that I moved back to Miami from New York, never having expected to move back to Miami, and I didn't want to come back. So I ended up picking the least Miami place I could find. Right. So instead of like a high rise that's white, it's looking at the water, like I picked this brick red building overlooking a cemetery. And about a year after I came back, my background's in wellness, and I started a company called Green Monkey in the past, which is kind of a known yoga studio here. And I came back from New York to be a finance guy, and I ended up shifting back into my passion, which is wellness and mindfulness and spirituality. So now Modern Home is a company around community and mindfulness. And we create many of the mindful experiences in Miami around meditation. We've done pop-up stores in Aventura Mall, mass meditations at Brickell City Center. We've had about 3,000 students across a festival around Miami. And the whole idea is demystifying meditation and mindfulness, making it accessible, both from a price point and from a social perspective. And it's kind of riding a wave now. Right, so we're talking about mindfulness and the benefits of wellness, and there's so much science underpinning why mindful, conscious lifestyle makes sense. And it's something that all of us can access inside of ourselves. There's just some tools that don't have to cost anything that you can apply, and Modern Home is one of the companies that is heralding this set of practices and this way of life and making it totally accessible and fun and social. So what this space is and what we do primarily is we give space for community to form around meditation and conscious living. So we started a club 2 weeks ago, a meditation club in Miami, and we have 80 members almost. That's crazy. Like 80 members in 2 weeks, but that's because people want to meet others like them. Just like this, just like what Andrew is doing. People want to be connected to others that have the same interests, who are thoughtful, conscious, introspective, who want to grow and develop. And places like Miami, it's an example of a city where there's a need for it, And so guess what? I do a meditation club, and within 2 weeks, 80 people sign up. And we're just starting. So I've been talking for a bit, but now you guys know what it is that we're doing here. And I'm super pumped to have people like you yourselves come and for kind of this subject to be taken up around how urbanism and mindfulness and wellness are interconnected. But treat this as your home. Welcome. Hopefully it's not the last time you come. And I'm stoked to chat with these guys.
Great. Thank you again. And of course, we have Ashwin, Dr. Ashwin Mehta. Is that did I pronounce your name correctly? Good. And I'd like for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do. What your work
Sure.
is.
So, my background is also in the wellness space, and I knew I always wanted to be a physician, but I always thought that there ought to be a little more to medicine than medication, surgeries, and really expensive diagnostic procedures. So, I took it upon myself. I kind of grew up in an environment where yoga and mindfulness and Ayurveda and all of these things were sort of commonplace and practiced as healing arts. And so I took it upon myself to kind of, after my medical studies, to really delve deep into how these types of modalities can be applied in a real evidence-informed way into modern medicine. And so my background is in internal medicine. I'm a sleep subspecialist, and sleep is very integrative because it kind of weaves it. Many subspecialties in medicine are sort of organ-based subspecialties. Sleep is a behavior-based subspecialty, so it really lends itself to a very integrative approach. And so, after all my training, and I was on faculty at University of Miami for a few years, where I developed their integrative medicine program. After which I was recruited by Memorial Health System to grow their integrative practices, and that's where I am currently. So, our goal is really, to heal the bodies, minds, and spirits of those whom we touch in the community, and to really bring, a real scientific and evidence base to the kinds of healing modalities that, the wisdom of ancient healing traditions have really practiced and known for millennia.
That's awesome. And we have Dr. Jamil Bashir here, and from Ocean, and explain what we do.
So I practice in a new field called Regenerative Medicine. So it's kind of a crossover. Like I'm an MD, a traditional Western doctor, but the field actually is interesting because it's kind of a crossover between alternative medicine meets Western medicine, because we use the body's own healing powers. So I'm an orthopedist, so I deal with like spine problems and joint problems and ligament problems and tendon problems, shoulder, knees, basically the human body, muscles. But what we've learned actually is to mimic the body's own healing response. So like when you sprain your ankle blows up like a balloon. The blood vessels leak, blood kind of seeps into the area. The platelets from the blood, the same platelets that stop you from bleeding, they go into the site of injury and they explode and they release molecules inside the platelets. They're signaling molecules. And those signaling molecules act on cells and they tell those cells to go into division. So this is how your body's healing all of the time. If you cut yourself, platelets rush to the area, they burst open, they release molecules, the skin cells then go into replication. This is how our bodies work. So about 15 years ago, dentists started realizing that if they took blood and they spun it and they concentrated platelets in a centrifuge, they just spun the blood and the platelets dropped to the bottom because they weigh more, and they just did it again and again and again, they could get millions of times the amount of platelets in like a small volume of fluid, like maybe a milliliter would have 1,000,000 times more platelets than you normally have. And they started putting them in defects in the mandible. People would go to the dentist and they'd have kind of holes in their bones, and they started just sticking platelets in them and the bones started regenerating. So people started realizing, wow, this is pretty amazing. We can use the body's own signaling system to kind of start healing. So from there, what I do kind of developed, and we started taking blood and spinning it and isolating platelets and spinning it again and making different concentrations of them, and then using ultrasound and x-ray, actually putting them in different tissue. So muscles, ligaments, tendons, and then getting them to regenerate. That's part of it. The other part is the other side of this is stem cells. So everyone hears of stem cells. So I'm a stem cell doc. My Instagram is called the Stem Cell Doc. It's a little bit of a misnomer if you really understand the biology of stem cells. But nonetheless, your body has stem cells in the bone marrow. So the other side of this, and this came to light maybe like 15 years ago, is when you have a major injury, your bone releases stem cells. You have stem cells in your body. The bone releases them, they go to the site of injury, and those cells grow into new tissue, and they signal the other cells to do even more. So the other part of what I do is I take from your bone, I just numb you up, I lay you down, and from your hip, I just drill into your bone, I take out the cells, we spin it in a centrifuge, and I can isolate out from the bone marrow the cells in your bone marrow, the healing cells, the very, very powerful healing cells from your body, mix those with the platelets, and voila, we recreate the body's healing response times like 800 million. So we're able to do amazing things. So we're able to regenerate meniscus, we're able to regenerate ACLs now, we're able to regenerate discs in the spine. And it's very Western, it's very technology, but nonetheless it's the body's own healing system, so it's very natural. And that's what I do. I got involved, I got interested in college. I had a terrible nerve injury. I lost function of my right arm for like a couple years. I couldn't lift it higher than this, my hand got messed up, and there was like no treatment for it. And when I went to med school, I was still kind of suffering from this problem and like recovering. I started reading about this field called regenerative medicine. As I was reading it, I was like, this is what I need. This is like, I need to find someone who does this, but there wasn't anybody who did that. So I started, I got involved in med school and residency. I worked with a guy named Josh Hare. He's a cardiologist at UM. He runs the Stem Cell Institute. He was like my mentor. I did some projects with him. And ultimately it led to a guy in Colorado whose name is Chris Centeno, who's like he's like the foremost doctor in the field. I went out and studied with him for 3 years, and I just came back here to Miami in June to open my own practice. So we're doing great things and looking forward to the future.
Great. So the way this format is, and these are all amazing people here, but so are you. And the way this format is tonight, it's just ask questions. All right. I want to open up Q&A quite early, but I want to obviously tie this back into how our cities currently are built, and sort of the rhythm of what we're doing here in Miami. One of the biggest things and most obvious things for me, as far as stress is concerned, is how traffic affects people. Yeah, I mean, you guys have all experienced Miami traffic, and it's quite horrible. It doesn't matter if you're driving or in Uber. It's just that the way the city is designed is almost as if like we designed our cities for cars, and no one's thinking the other way around. Let's take our cities back and give it to people to walk. How great it would be to turn streets into gardens and parks, right? It'd be kind of cool to have that happen one day, but we know that's not how it's going to work. So in all of your professions, in all that you guys do, in talking about regenerative medicine, you talk about your sleep study, Ashby, and of course your mindfulness. Mike, in Brickell City Center, the way the architecture is designed is to bring the outside in. How did that factor into you choosing that location for your push and crawl? And how do you see that becoming more of a thing here in Miami? Can we encourage architects and developers to really think more that way, I should say?
It's a cool question. So it came up today that we do meditations in different neighborhoods. And we've done them at Brickell City Center, Aventura Mall, even some hotels, but it's about the space. So when the space is not inviting, when it's not cozy, when it's not organic, it falls flat, right? So it's like the meditation, like the groups can't grow because people, it's not that they maybe consciously don't want to show up, but it's not inviting for them. Brickell City Center is a great example of something that's incredibly well built because you walk in, whether you're shopping or not, and I'm not a major shopper, but I can appreciate it. You walk in, there's greenery, there's that beautiful roof that has, it actually pushes wind down at like 5 knots to cool the inside. But anyhow, it's like a beautiful space. So using it for these mass meditation events really makes sense because it's conducive to that kind of a organic, holistic, integrated feeling of bringing that, like you said, the outside in, but then it's covered, right? So obviously we don't have to contend with the elements there. So I think that, it's, for people to be, so I also used to live in Russia. So I'm Russian, I used to live in Russia, so I'm pretty familiar with the Stalinesque architecture, right? So you walk in, the entire block is like one big building. It's so ugly. And it's like, there's like no humanity in it. So anyways, that's like the other end of it, of like where we're kind of pushing away from or like talking about what cities of the future are going to look like, but I think that's really interesting to consider the way it makes you feel.
Yeah. So yeah, the way that the space makes you feel is a big factor in how you choose the locations that you do.
Yeah, they have to be exactly.
But you also did something in, which is quite interesting, in Wynwood Yard not too long ago, inside a shipping container.
Right. So that for the cushion crawl, which was 21 days of meditation in 21 different venues, the intention was different.
Yeah.
We weren't trying to establish a space where people feel comfortable in. We wanted to have a whole diverse array of spaces and teachers, kind of just give different flavors.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing about the Wynwood Yard, it was so loud that, and it was so disruptive, that the teacher who had meditated with us before, he's not a professional meditation teacher. It was tough for him. And afterwards, I kind of, at the end, it was like this meditation. I wouldn't say it's not the best meditation experience.
Yeah.
But I sat down and I said, okay, so this is great. We're so happy that all of us experienced this today. But because they say you're supposed to be able to meditate, on a street corner, like in Bangladesh, like that's how you know you're deep in it, right? That's the state that you're supposed to be in. I go, so welcome to the street corner in Bangladesh, and then everybody kind of clicked and got it, and it was that, then it was a shared experience that we had, totally. That some certain places lend themselves and certain don't.
So, Ashwin, I wanted to kind of focus a lot on your sleep study, because we've had this conversation before. I have a friend, I think it was you, that told me when you moved to Miami, you had to play city noise. Jasmine? Yeah, okay, so Jasmine had to play, she said, city noise.
Yes, because the suburbs are way too quiet and it freaks me out. So even now, just here, I'm more used to hearing the cars honking, the ambulance passing by, and so from living in a super urban environment to just houses everywhere and just absolute quiet, it was complete flip, and so I had to start using white noise so I can just get some sleep.
Interesting. So how does that play into the city, the noise, everything, just our rhythm and sleep? How does that affect us, and how does the city play into that?
So incidentally, I also lived in Philadelphia. I was in Center City, so I'm very familiar with the the noise, and similarly experienced a transition when moving back here to Florida. It's incredible what the body and the mind can adapt to. And in residency, I could catch a really quick nap on an elevator, no joke. Ultimately, in gatherings like this, one of the most common questions I'm asked is, how much sleep do I really need? And what people are asking really is, how little sleep can I get away with? Because what's happened is that with our lifestyles, we have actually minimized the importance of that downtime, that restful space. And whether it's mindfulness meditation, a good sleep routine, that space is incredibly important. Now, when people come in to see me for sleep concerns or sleep conditions or just dissatisfied with overall sleep quality, it's oftentimes because they have become habitually ignorant of how important that restful space is in their lives. Now, if you think about this beautiful space, right? If we were to make a list of all the things in this room, we'd say there's people and there's chairs and there's a large table and a little kitchenette here. So we would make a list of all the things that are in this room, but actually by volume, what occupies this area more than anything else is space. If you look at subatomic particles, the space in between nuclei and electrons is actually the majority of all atoms that make up all things. So space is incredibly important in nature, and it's ubiquitous. And to have that restful space for ourselves is one of the most important manifestations of self-compassion. And ultimately, what we allow without setting good boundaries and prioritizing self-care, we allow constantly infringing on our space. And by space, we really mean time also. And that time for restful space, that time for good sleep is so incredibly important. So, it's not just how long we're sleeping for, but it's also the sleep quality. So, and there's different ways of getting to better sleep quality. Having a good bedtime routine, a sleep environment that you're used to, but also that is consistent with your circadian rhythm, the night and day cycle. I think I oftentimes depict sleep as a 4-movement symphony orchestra. So if every single organ system in the body is a different instrument section of a symphony orchestra, they all have to play in a coordinated manner to get from one movement of that symphony into the next. And that's like transitioning from one stage of sleep or one level of sleep into the next. And melatonin is like the conductor. So what do? We have like bright screens in our rooms, we have computers, we have laptops, cell phones, and we drag all that light energy into the bedroom with us. And so we're trying to conduct a symphony orchestra without the conductor being out there on stage, because that light energy actually extinguishes all endogenous production of melatonin in the brain. So that is really, one of the mainstays of my practice is encouraging that space, encouraging a good bedtime routine, encouraging proper sleep hygiene, and also just bringing awareness to the fact that sleep actually impacts so many other aspects of our physiology, whether it's our immune system, our cardiovascular health, our physical fitness, our cognitive abilities, our ability for memory and recall. All of those things are profoundly impacted by sleep. So that's kind of where we address the noise in the context of what you're used to. So we have to meet our clientele where they are, and then gradually encourage a weaning off of certain habits that may not be constructive to great quality sleep.
But Miami is a very big party city in the sense that we have a lot of entertainment here, and we have tourism that kind of feeds on that, but also the locals do take advantage of that.
Sure.
So sleep cycle here is pretty non-existent for a lot. I mean, as far as rhythm is concerned. So how do you address that? In a way that get people to still have a fun life, so to speak, but do enough to take care of themselves from a sleep perspective.
I often say that you can't really cheat biology. If you continue to sort of shortchange your physiology from what is healthy, then it will catch up to you. And that's not to say that I don't go out and party. I do. But the bottom line is that, oftentimes, every single culture in the world has kind of developed, has understood the importance of a siesta. So if you're going to go out and party, schedule a nap. Actually put it on your calendar. Put a nap in your calendar at the next day after lunchtime. Because again, what ends up happening is if you are sleep deprived from the evening before, your body will pull you more efficiently into REM sleep during that nap. So you can kind of make up for it, right? And of course, party with moderation, because oftentimes these energy drinks that a lot of people are mixing with vodka and whatever beverages they're drinking, in addition to that, caffeine. So alcohol and caffeine disrupt our sleep architecture. So sleep architecture is basically that smooth transition from one stage of sleep into the next. And so just be mindful of that. And ultimately, it's also about self-awareness. The reason that I always include mindfulness meditation, I meditate with every single one of my clients every single day, because just to emphasize the importance of it. To have a good sleep routine, to have that space that segues into more effective transitioning, better sleep architecture, that is so important. And that's kind of why, mindfulness is and meditation practices are some of the mainstays when it comes to improving your sleep quality and enhancing your self-awareness. So ultimately, knowing your limits, understanding what is healthy in terms of good sleep technique, scheduling a nap, that's probably one of the most amazing acts of self-compassion that you can provide if you know that you're going to be out late in the night before. These are some of the general things that we would encourage. And then of course, afterwards, snapping back into as healthy a routine as you can that's consistent with your night and day cycle.
Now, Jim, I know that you studied, there are some other... Okay.
Can I ask a
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Thanks. Being a native Miamian and not a party animal, I wake up
Really?
very early. Yeah,
Okay.
nothing good happens after midnight. So I have a pretty good, sleep hygiene.
I've been having golden milk at night, and I don't know why, but it just helps me. It zonks me out. That's a Ayurvedic, right? So
Sure.
what about it makes
Sure.
me comatose?
Is everybody familiar with what golden milk is? It's a concoction. There's many different recipes out there, but generally, what makes it golden is turmeric, the curcuminoids in turmeric, and many times it's mixed with other spices, including ginger, black pepper, usually heated and then boiled in kind of like some sort of a fatty substance like milk or coconut water or coconut milk or something of that nature. So. Generally speaking, to be frank, it's probably not any ingredient specifically in the coconut in this golden milk that's actually creating a direct physiologic. The curcuminoids have tremendous antioxidant properties. They have they're very high anti-inflammatory properties, but there's nothing besides a little more magnesium than a regular glass of milk that would actually contribute to improving your sleep quality. But we are so Pavlovian, we are so set in this routine that just having a routine that includes some golden milk or a cup of warm milk or milk and cookies or what have you ends up sending that signal to the brain that it's time to start the landing cycle. And that's kind of what a good bedtime routine is. It's a landing cycle. We fly, if our planes are designed, if our bodies and minds are designed to fly at 30,000 feet, we fly them at 75,000 feet, and we just expect them to, kind of flip a switch and then turn off and drift off into restful oblivion. It's not going to happen. So having a good bedtime routine that includes things like this, which is, it's a very healthy, it's much healthier than what many of my clients admit is their bedtime routine. Right. But just again, it's less what's in the golden milk and more the fact that it's part of the process. Aromatherapy, meditation practice, some tea that you habitually drink, like chamomile tea, caffeine-free tea. These are all aspects of a good bedtime routine which can really enhance that landing cycle.
Yeah, so there was supposed to be another panelist who was the actual landscape architect to kind of anchor all this and bring it all into the space of urbanism and how it all applies. But unfortunately, he had a family emergency and he couldn't make it. So Jonathan Burgess will eventually have him at some point. But he's a part of a big movement with architects around wellness, building around wellness. And so that's why it could have made a little more sense, I guess, perhaps having him here. But nonetheless, I think everyone kind of get the point of what we're trying to drive here is that a lifestyle of mindfulness is super important nowadays. We're so involved in so many things and we're extremely busy. And so I just wanted to put that out there that Jonathan couldn't make it, but we'll have him some other time. Now, Jamil, you study more than just stem cell. So tell us a little bit more about your practices and some of the things that you're certified in.
Sure. So I'm a yoga instructor. I've been practicing yoga for 16 years. I did my teacher training in 2009. And I practice Qigong. Qigong I learned through different teachers. I had 4 different teachers, also 16 years. I use that in my practice to some degree for rehab for patients, yoga. I was working with a patient with some osteoarthritis today. And then I study informally Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine, and I do incorporate that sometimes. When you really start looking at what I do, since I'm using the body's own healing powers, ultimately I'm using the immune system. So these cells, the platelets, really it's all, people think of the immune system as attacking disease, but the immune system is also the system that heals your body. So if your immune system is weak, not only will you get sick, but you also won't heal from injuries. So I do sometimes complement. I have some layums in my clinic, which is a way of taking herbs in Ayurveda and boiling it in ghee to kind of create stimulation of the immune system. Sometimes I'll put patients on those. Generally, yoga, the way yoga fits in, your body has an alignment, just like where chiropractic care or osteopathic medicine crosses over with regular medicine, or regular is the wrong word, traditional medicine. When your body is in alignment, everything is going to function properly. Your femur is sitting in your hip and it's not rotated the wrong way. When things get out of alignment and muscles become too tight, nerves get pinched in your spine, the alignment in the body gets thrown off, and over time, it's that alignment that causes degeneration. So really what's happening in your body, if you ever like kink your neck and you're like, oh God, what was that, you know? And you get some spasms in some muscles, that ultimately will lead to arthritis. That's where it all comes from. It's like micro problems with the spine. The nerves get irritated, the muscles start getting spasms, they develop trigger points, things get tight, the bone doesn't move as much, and that's ultimately that's how we all break down. That's like what is happening. So when I treat a patient, like if a patient will come to me with, let's say, a shoulder problem, let's say they have arthritis in their shoulder, I will treat the shoulder. I'll treat the shoulder with cells and with PRP, but I'll also trace the injury. I'll look at their shoulder, how are the mechanics, and many times they trace it back to the neck. And you could talk to them, yeah, I remember 10 years ago I like lifted something off the shelf and I felt this like twinge in my neck. And you can trace it and you can see like, you know, those segments in the spine, which those nerves control the muscles, that's how it all began. So I treat the neck and we'll treat the nerves to kind of get better flow. And where that kind of crosses over to Dr. Mehta's talk, and one thing I always tell patients is like sleep is when you heal. You definitely heal when you sleep. That's when your growth hormone levels spike. That's when your cortisol levels should drop. That's when your thyroid hormone goes up. That is when your body goes into repair mode. And if you think about it, not only on a hormonal level are you going into repair mode, but on a nervous system level you are. So the nerves begin impulsing differently. And the nerves send impulses to the joints to regenerate. And the cells get stimulated. They say, okay, it's time to repair. We're in sleep. We're in deep sleep. Now we're going to really repair. And when you get these problems in the spine, and it really comes back to the spine, that's like when you study yoga, they always talk about spine flexibility, having the joints open. It is the spine. It's all in your spine. All that chiropractic care, it's all there's a lot of wisdom in that. And when you go to sleep at night and, you know, the nerve is pinched and your whole body goes into repair mode and the nerves are pulsing, if that nerve is getting pinched, that nerve is misfiring. So every night, day after day after day, years after years, that's where these problems come from. That's where we degenerate. That's ultimately what leads to problems. So by bringing in yoga and bringing in Qigong, which is a whole other discussion if anyone's interested in Chinese medicine, because we do have an energetic body. We absolutely do. Western medicine is catching on to it. I've been practicing Qigong for 16 years, and just by practicing Qigong, when you start practicing, you just say, oh yeah, okay, there's Qi, there is energy in the body. By bringing in like the yoga and helping people to align and keeping the spine strong and just, you know, working from a wellness and a proactive standpoint, I do bring that in. And with the Qigong is something, has everyone heard of Qigong? So Qigong is Chinese meditation. In yoga they talk about pranayama. It's a way of controlling prana. In Taoism and Taoist thought they talk about Qigong, a way of, you know, through breath bringing in prana or Qi into your body. And ultimately, a lot of that works with the immune system again. You'll see people who have a lot of problems when they get sick or even low back pain. A lot of times you'll see patients with low back pain. Acupuncturists can a lot of times heal low back pain. They go and they hit the right points on the body and they bring in Qi to the kidneys, and you know that's in Chinese medicine. When the kidneys are weak, the low back has problems, and you can treat things energetically. And that's kind of like with me. I'm not there yet, but I have like a long-term goal with my, you know, pursuit of medicine, of kind of integrating these things more. I've studied some acupuncture, but that's like one step at a time.
So, you know, so what I'm hearing is that, you know, between you and Ash and of course, you know, Mike, there's a lot of different things that you sort of bring into this practice of mindfulness and wellness. And I'm just curious as to who is plugged in right now or taking on any projects where you can advise, say, for instance, the policymakers, people who are urban planners. Have you worked with developers? Have you worked with architects? Is there a movement that you're sort of a part of, or you think that you would want to become a part of to help, you know, affect change in how we do wellness from a whole city perspective, more preventative than wait until the problems happen? And if you want to speak on that a little bit.
I mean, I think it starts with this type of fellowship right here. I mean, you know, the more awareness that we have within our community with regard to the importance of healing, a restful space, mindfulness meditation, you know, that is really the only way that we will collectively begin to bring about change, right? So great job, Andrea.
We got to start somewhere.
Yeah, yes. and for sure. And then other than that, you know, I'm employed by a 6-hospital health system, which is, you know, one of the 5th largest public health, community health systems in the country. So, you know, for them to kind of, you know, invest in the integrative model and understand that, you know, healing of body can't happen without also addressing mind and spirit. You know, I think that's a great step. So we're beginning to see, you know, these pockets of enlightenment actually move the needle towards greater wellness, greater awareness within our communities. And so, you know, us as a group we're very much a part of that. So doing this is actually, you know, very much in that vein.
Same.
And yeah, I was going to say that that's very much in line with what I've found to be what moves the needle is the community piece, right? So meditation and mindfulness can be practiced by ourselves. There's plenty of apps. You don't need an app. You can have a mantra. You can take lessons. You can count your breaths. There's so many different modalities of meditation and mindfulness. But it's when a group forms, when there's a fellowship, when there's a community, that has a lot of benefits. I think from a psychologically, right? So you can relate to people, you can share, you can get more comfortable. I don't know the science behind it, just since I don't have the same background, but I'm sure that there's some science around how. Well, there is actually blue zones, right? In the blue zones, which is the studies of longevity in different parts of the world, there's some communities that have extra long lifespans. And one of the features of those communities, or of those groups, is focus on community. So that's my one data point from a health standpoint. But in terms of creating opportunities for people to get together in different communities, right? So what if there were a meditation group in every neighborhood, or accessible to every neighborhood in New York City, that everybody was open to going to and to joining, and was cool and fun? Like how would that impact, would that move the needle in those communities, right? Let's start with Miami. What would it look like if more people were gathering to look inward, to kind of hold space for each other? And then ultimately, of course, to those bonds continue past the event, past those experiences. Because now all of a sudden you're connected to somebody. You're connected to a group of people for the right reasons. Not the same connection as if you go to a bar, or you go out to a different place, or you go to a networking event. You're going someplace to go inward, to find that energetic bond with others. So I think that has a real place in society. And you don't need to have urban planners, or you can build for it. But I think that it starts actually with the heart, with the actual community piece, because you can put yoga rooms and meditation rooms in airports all day long. I just don't know who uses it.
Yeah.
Right? So there's like that piece of, not only is like the building for different activities and for different purposes, but it's filling them, right? Filling them with an energy that actually services.
What do you have to say about that?
I haven't been involved, recently. I used to teach free yoga classes during residency in downtown. That was, a way to kind of bring wellness in. I think in general, it'd be good to create, discussion groups where people can begin to learn preventative maintenance for their body. Like I said, I think once you just grasp the general idea just from this conversation, like that's how your body works. Like keep your spine healthy, keep yourself flexible, like practice some yoga, open up your joints. Like, your body's a machine. It's going to function well as long as you are just maintaining basic, self-care. And then bringing in just, understanding like food as medicine, just how to eat properly. I think meditation is huge. I think, when the mind quiets down, it's when, again, cortisol levels drop. A lot of it is, just understanding, hormones and how stress of society is breaking us all down. Everyone asks, like, what's the number one disease? And it's guaranteed stress. It's guaranteed stresses. Is what really is causing the majority of disease out there.
Questions?
It's more like a comment, and I'm not sure how to
Okay.
put it all in, but I'll start somewhere.
Go ahead.
One of the things, I'm quite a traveler, and I really, one of the things that I do when I travel, I'm always looking at spaces, how they're being used, how is that airport functioning, how does the Miami airport function, how I navigate through it, how do I get out of it in it, and then when I go to other places, how, like, almost like the
the model, the small scale model of whatever they're building looks beautiful from that bird's eye view, but it has no function when you put a human being to walk through it through the rat race.
Yeah.
And it really, a perfect example is the Miami airport. They spend millions of dollars. It looks beautiful when it is in that scale, but when you walk it, it's inhuman. It's like really no one enjoys that experience. And it's like, how do we intercept that process so that the human experience is embedded in the architecture of Miami, which it's a strange thing because architecture is intended to be the human use of spaces.
Yeah.
But there's no human in the Miami experience when you're building these spaces. And I was actually curious how you felt about the Miami city center because the Brickell City Center. If you guys perceive it as a functional space, as just this flashy architecture in the middle of downtown with no sidewalks, how does it? Like I said, it's a very convoluted, but Miami needs that human interaction in their development of spaces, and I don't know how as a community we interact with that.
Well, I mean, yes, I think every city has room for improvement, but definitely Miami. So Jonathan would have been perfect to actually answer that question because he's an architect that's actually following a movement of making architecture people-centric, which is like, as you said, that was the intention from the get-go, but I understand somehow a lot of architects got